Well, good morning and welcome to another RiderCamTV video. And today we're leaving the car park in Truro in Cornwall, and I thought I'd just head up through Truro. I'm going to meet an associate, a new associate actually, that we're training through Rosper, and we're going to have his first ride assessment, see how that goes. And I thought I'd not only try out this new setup that I've got with the GoPro on front of the camera, stuck to the helmet with my chin mount. I found this company called chinmounts.com. Clips for GoPros for specific helmets, and luckily they did the helmet, a chin mount for the helmet that I use, which is a Scorpion ADX1. They brought an ADX2 out, and I'd love to try that one. Might try it one day, but for now we're using the Scorpion ADX1. And I thought what I'd do is ride up through Truro to meet my associate, not only see how the camera's working, see how it all fits together, see if it improves the dynamics on the bike, but also to potentially look at these changes in the highway code that we were talking about. So I've seen, the link will be in the description for the last video, and we did a video on the 8 changes, or 8 things you need to know about the changes to the highway code. And Mark and I were surmising really, and talking about those changes. In actual fact, I don't think from our point of view, from a rider's point of view where you should be planning for all these things, that it will change dramatically. I think putting that emphasis on making sure that people that are more vulnerable on the road, and emphasis on them in terms of protecting them a little bit more, I think is only the right thing to be doing, to be fair. And the highway code had things on there. I thought he was going to come out. Highway code has had it always written into it that we should be mindful of other road users, we should care for other road users, perhaps not using those words, but that's the ethos of it. And the thing is, for so many years people either don't know what the highway code says because they did their test in their car, their bike, whatever they're doing the test on so long ago, that not an awful lot of people know exactly what's in there and what's changed and what's law and what's not and what's advisory and what's not and all that sort of stuff. And perhaps this is a good time for people to start reading up to see what the highway code actually means to them and what implications it means to them, either being on foot, on a bicycle, on a motorbike, on a car, and all those good things, so that we can just look after each other on the road. Now, I've seen on my travels, since we did that video, quite a few pedestrians that have been stood by the side of the road, and cars seem to be slowing down because they're really not sure of what that pedestrian's going to do, and that's 100% what we should be doing, I think. You know, the speed limits of 20 and 30 are there to give us time and space so that we can create a plan of what we're going to do. So if we're doing 20 or 30 miles an hour in one of those zones, like this car here, it's 30, I can plan, I've moved away from that vehicle, he can see me, he's seen the movement of me moving from position 3 or position 2 into position 3. I'm trickling along at 29 miles an hour, 30 miles an hour, because it's a 30 limit. I've got all the time in the world to plan for stuff that's happening in front of me. I've got a really good view behind of that orange car behind me. He's not too close, so I'm not too fussed with that. And now we're presented with another hazard, a traffic light. Now, if there was somebody waiting to cross the traffic light, this is a main road. So the highway code doesn't say if they're waiting to cross the main road, so i.e. if they're waiting to cross from left to right here, we wouldn't necessarily stop all of the traffic to let that pedestrian across. And don't forget that that pedestrian isn't going to push himself or herself out in front of traffic unless they've got a death wish, because people need to be able to see what they're doing and plan for it, plan for those eventualities. But where you're turning left or where you're turning right and there's somebody next to a junction or on the pavement looking like they're going to cross, does it really take much to give them a couple of seconds out of your life to make sure that they're either going to cross or they're not, so that they're a little bit safer? I don't think it does. And unfortunately there hasn't been anybody here wanting to cross the road and I'm not turning left or turning right. But it's a 40-mile-an-hour limit here. There's loads of traffic in the first lane, so quick check over my shoulder and in the mirror, indicate into the second lane. I'm going straight across. Traffic lights are still on green. I've changed gear just to anticipate in case they change again. The one thing I need to look at here is whether those people in lane 1 actually stay in lane 1, because lots of people, they just go straight across the lines. They don't seem to mean anything to a lot of car drivers, especially if you're on a bicycle or a bike. But at this speed, this distance from this Porsche in front, I've got all the time in the world to plan for an eventuality. So here we are, we've got a pedestrian on the right hand side. He's looking like he wants to cross. I'm not going to stop for him because it would endanger me, endanger other people, and I'm not turning right into a junction or left. So I just moved to position 1, just out of his way, just in case he went to move, and I would be able to slow down and stop and deal with whatever happens. And I think that's the whole point. I think some of the changes to the highway code have probably been lost in translation. And they always will be, because what's interpreted by one person is very often interpreted by somebody else in a completely different way. And that's just the way of anything, really. If you read anything, the Bible, anything, it's interpreted in different ways for different people. It depends how you feel on the day when you're reading it. It depends on what you think, which political side or stance you're on, what makes sense to you, what doesn't make sense to you, all that good stuff. So I think a lot of it is interpretation. I think, truthfully, I don't think an awful lot of people are going to bother looking at what it says in the highway code like they haven't now. I think they'll continue to do what they've always done and just drive or ride in the way that they have done. Especially seeing as though the government, I think, have been a little bit lax in telling people what the changes are. They've kind of left it to the last minute, unfortunately, but I don't think that people are going to put themselves in harm's way. Now, I think it may be different from place to place or geography to geography, and by that I mean, I think in Cornwall, the roads that I've just been on, or that we're on at the moment, it's a busy city. Could call it a big town, really, a busy city. Now, there's lots of people walking, cycling, motorbiking, driving cars, lorries, all that stuff. But I think when you start getting into a more densely populated city or densely populated area where there are lots and lots of things going on, I think that's where things might start going a little bit awry, especially if it's predominantly, I don't know, take London for an example. There's many, many more pedestrians, I would guess, having been there a few times, than there are motorcycles and cars driving along. So there might be more of an issue there, where people have kind of thought that they've read what the changes are on the highway code. Bearing in mind Karen from Facebook is the expert, so that's probably what most people have seen. They probably haven't done any homework and actually read about the changes and what they mean to them. They've taken somebody else's word for it, their interpretation of what somebody else has interpreted to tell them. So I think places that built up areas where there's lots of pedestrians, there's lots more people that potentially might not have bothered to look at the highway code because they don't think it is relevant to them perhaps, or don't even know about the changes, or know some of the changes but they've heard it third hand rather than investigating it themselves, might just start stepping out into roads and think, well, I've got the right of way, cars will have to stop. But it's always been the case that if somebody's on the road, they've got the right of way, haven't they? If a pedestrian's on the road crossing, I'm not going to speed up or just keep going and knock them over. I'm always going to slow down and make sure that they're okay, because 2 tons of vehicle slamming into a person really isn't good at any speed. So I think all in all, I think it's a big song and dance in many situations about not a great deal, to be honest, with the highway code. I think in terms of an advanced rider, and certainly something that I'll be going through with my associates, that it does put an emphasis on a real importance and emphasis on the IPSCA, the System Advanced Motorcycle or Advanced Car Control Information Position speed, gear and accelerate for every hazard. It might just be that those hazards are increased a little bit with people bedding in or getting to know what the new rights and rules of the road are, or those changes and how they interpret them and how they behave on the road. But I think in terms of an advanced point of view, looking at the IPSCA, never before has that been much more important, I don't think. We'll still be planning for every eventuality. In advanced riding, we tend to plan for what we can least expect to happen. So if somebody stood on the road, on the pavement, looking as though they're going to cross, chances are they want to cross. So do we slow down? Yes. We deal with them deal with that hazard as we see it, and that's slowing down, giving us some time and space, giving us the ability to be able to deal with whatever they do. And the good thing about IPSCA that we use is that you're not only looking in front of you, you're aware of this 360-degree bubble of everything that's going on around you. And if you're looking at everything that's going on around you, then you're also looking at whatever's happening behind you. If you know what's happening behind you, or you've got an idea of what's going on behind you, and you have to slow down, hopefully seeing that hazard at a little bit of an earlier stage would have slowed you down, but would have also helped to slow the traffic behind you down, and in that case, making everybody a little bit safer. So, very quick video today. Hope you've enjoyed it. Give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.